What's up guys, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation, and today we're going to be continuing our post-rotation Burning Shadows coverage with another deck that you guys have been requesting, and that is going to be Turbo Darkrai EX and GX. So as I've said in the other videos guys, we have been doing a lot of coverage recently on post-rotation stuff in the upcoming breakthrough on standard format like Greninja and Metagross and some other decks, so check those out if you can. Show your support, I would definitely appreciate it. But today we're going to be looking at a Turbo Darkrai deck, and as you might have noticed, we have done a Turbo Darkrai deck in the last few weeks or so, but that one is a pre-rotation deck, so that one is really geared towards people that are still competing in local league cups, league challenges, maybe at the world championship level. But today we're going to be looking at a post-rotation deck, and I am really excited about this deck. I think it's a very consistent deck. It's a very aggressive deck. We're not even playing many 1-ofs or 2-ofs, as you can see here. Lots of 3 and 4-ofs, a very, very consistent deck, and the strategy is just very streamlined. We're just getting a bunch of energy on the board and using Darkrai-EX's Dark Pulse. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into the strategy here and talk about some of the card counts here. So like I said, the main attacker of the deck is this Darkrai-EX from Breakpoint. It has this awesome Dark Pulse attack that does 20 damage plus 20 more for each dark energy on all of your Pokemon. So if I have 7 energy on the board, that's going to be doing 140 damage plus 20 is going to be doing 160 for the attack. And then if I have a Choice Band, that's going to put it in range of that magic number, which is usually about 180, 190 in that range to knock out most of your opponent's EXs and GXs. So really easy to get it on the board if you're counting attaching for turn, using Max Elixir to get those extra attachments, and using Darkrai-GX's restoration ability. So this is a brand new Pokemon GX from Burning Shadows. I was really fortunate enough to pull some of these out of these shop packs, so really excited about that. And Darkrai-GX has a restoration ability. It says once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your discard, put it onto your bench and then attach a dark energy to it. So, and you know, there are some instances maybe you're gonna get benched out or something like that if you can't get a Pokemon on the bench. You don't have to attach the energy to Darkrai. Like if you don't have the energy, for instance, then you can just put it right on the bench. But if you have Darkrai and an energy on the bench or in the discard, you would put it on the bench. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting ability. There's lots of other uses for it as well. I mean, I've seen decks that are playing Mega Rayquaza and they're now playing Darkrai in standard. So lots of really interesting uses. And Dark Cleave is actually not a bad attack here. It's doing 130, so it's 2-shotting most of your opponent's Pokemon, and it's not affected by resistance. So you know, it is going to go through Gardevoir GX and basically 2-shot it. Although I don't really know if you'll ever use that, but I mean, it is good against maybe something like the Xerneas with Geomancy, you know, different fairy types that are normally resistant to dark. But Darkrai is a really good addition because a lot of times you're going to discard Darkrai, maybe have an energy mid to late game, and it's going to add extra damage on the board. You may not even attack with it unless you have like experience share or something on it, but most of the time it's really nice to get it out of the discard with that ability and have an extra 30 damage with Darkrai's Dark Pulse. So we're also playing 2 of the baby Yveltal because of this Oblivion Wing attack. The second attack isn't so relevant because 3 energy on something that has only 130 HP isn't all that great. And then you also have to flip a coin to see if you can attack next turn. So not really concerned about the second attack, but Oblivion Wing is definitely where it's at. It's doing 30 damage or 60 with a Choice Band, and you're attaching an energy from the discard to your bench Pokemon. So some obvious synergy there. If you can just discard a bunch of energy, just keep using that early game, and you're also kind of setting up for knockouts as well. Maybe you're hitting for 60 damage on the first turn, and you're kind of retreating out the following turn and finishing it up with like 120, 130 damage with the Darkrai EX. So that's why I think Yveltal's good, and it's a single prize attacker, so if you get it knocked out, your opponent still has to take 6 more prizes. They still have to knock out your EXs and GXs. So I think Yveltal definitely is still warranted in the deck, even though you're playing a bunch of energy acceleration already. And then, you know, concluding the list, we have 3 copies of Tapu Lele-GX. So that Wonder Tag ability is going to be really really strong going to the next format because we are losing Versus Seeker, we're losing Trainer's Mail, we're losing Shaman EX. So Tapu Lele is a really suitable replacement, especially for playing really thick supporter lines. So honestly, I mean, I've been testing post-rotation stuff, and I think I find it equally consistent or maybe even more consistent than pre-rotation, just because normally I don't have a handful of Versus Seekers I can't use. Pre-rotation, you might start off with a Versus Seeker or two, and you can't even use it just because you don't have a supporter in the discard. But with Tapu Lele, we're wonder tagging, we're playing thicker supporter counts. So honestly, not really much of a change compared to last format, except you have to be a little more conservative with your resources, and the game is slowing down a little bit. But wonder tag is going to enable us to get a lot of supporters out throughout the game. And as you can see, we're not really playing a whole lot of different types of supporters, but we are playing thicker counts here. So we are playing 4 Sycamore and 4 N. That's really the draw engine of the deck. We don't really have Acrobike or Trainer's Mail anymore, or Shaman. And then we're playing 3 Guzma and a Fan Club. So 3 Guzma is great because we're eventually going to have so much energy on the board that we can one-shot practically anything. So if we can just kind of Guzma up like their Tapu Lele's, for example, that should be a really, really cheap knockout. And that's really going to win you the game eventually, because this deck is so aggressive. You can take those knockouts as early as the second turn or so. And then finally, the Fan Club. I really like Fan Club in here just because it gives us the option to kind of fill up our bench. There might be some turns where you have the Darkrai-GX in your hand. Maybe you can pull off a play where you can Oblivion Wing or something if you can just get it in the discard, or get some more energy on the board that way. So I mean, Fan Club is definitely warranted because I think you have to fill up that bench really quickly. You have to get Darkrai's out, you have to get your baby Yveltals out, and the format's kind of slowing down, so I think you can afford the turn to do it. Some other options that I have seen are Sophocles. Sophocles is a new supporter from the Burning Shadows set, and I believe it says you discard 2 cards from your hand and draw 4 cards. So that is an alternative. I would probably take out the Fan Club and maybe an Energy if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to squeeze in a couple of Sophocles, but I don't think Sophocles is quite as good as N or Professor Sycamore, so that's why there aren't any in this particular list. I'm really just kind of focused on a very streamlined list that gets me where I need to be. So drawing 3 or 4 cards a turn, not amazing, but the fact that you can discard cards, I can see why you would play it in here, because you can discard the GX Darkrai, some energy, so that is one option. And then another option might even be Lily, just because on your very first turn, you can draw until you have 8 cards in your hand, which is really good, but it does kind of set you up for being an end. Drawing up until 6 isn't really amazing when we might have a handful of supporters and items. So, I mean, this is the pretty standard counts that I have seen from some other videos and from some other high-profile players throughout the season. So, I think this is definitely, a step in the right direction. And of course, our stadium of choice here is going to be Altar of the Moon. We're playing 4 of those. And if you're familiar with the Dark Cloak Darkrai from Dark Explorers a few years ago, I mean, it's essentially what this is. The retreat cost of each Pokemon that has any psychic or dark energy attached is 2 less. So, I mean, it doesn't give you completely free retreat, but in this particular deck, it does, because all of our guys have 2 retreats. So we have Darkrai, Tapu Lele, and Yveltal. The most I see is 2 retreat, so they are all going to have free retreat throughout the game. And that's going to be really crucial, because you might Max Elixir to the baby Yveltal on the bench, attach return to like the GX that's stuck in the active, and suddenly you can Oblivion Wing in your first turn. Or maybe you've attached a few energy to the Darkrai, you retreat out and you Dark Pulse for a really quick knockout, and you'd be surprised how often that happens. So Altar of the Moon really gave this a consistency boost. Before, you'd have to play like Escape Rope or Switch or something, but the retreat is pretty much guaranteed. And there's also synergy with Guzma as well. I can Guzma something and then retreat out to the attacker and take that knockout. And as far as our items go, we're not even really playing a lot of items. So if you're going against a Garbodor deck, this deck is going to have a really, really natural advantage. You're really hard countering that strategy of the Trash Lynch Garbodor. We have 4 Choice Band. That's going to really be a way to modify our damage, make sure we're adding an extra 30 every turn to get in range of the knockouts. 4 Max Elixir, just because we want to get energy on the board. 4 Ultra Ball, because that's our main search engine for getting our Pokemon out. And I I can also see if you want to play something like Nest Ball, maybe even a couple Nest Ball. Nest Ball is going to be putting a basic directly on the bench, so it doesn't really help with the GX Darkrai or the Tapu Lele, but if you do want to hurry and get those Darkrai EXs out so you can just kind of load the board with them, I could definitely see that. And if you did that, I would probably take out a Fan Club for sure. Basically the same effect. We're really playing Fan Club to search out those Darkrai's and Yveltals, so Nest Ball might be an alternative. And then we're also playing 2 Field Blower, just because the Garbotox and Garbodor, it can be a little bit annoying because we're so reliant on Tapu Lele, on Darkrai's restoration ability. So Field Blower, really good at just kind of disrupting your opponent, getting rid of their stadiums, their tools like fighting Fury Belt and Floatstone. So pretty standard at this point. And then finally, we have 3 Experience Share. So a lot of the professional players, they have been playing 4 pre-rotation, but I think 3 is actually fine. I think we can actually cut 1 because we're playing 3 of the Darkrai-GX, and so that kind of makes up for it. Darkrai can get energy on the board. We're playing 4 Choice Bands, so a lot of our attackers won't even have the Experience Share to begin with, so I think 3 definitely does the job. And then concluding the list, we're going to be playing a whopping 15 energy. So I have seen the deck as low as 12 or 13, but the deck really doesn't need much else. I mean, 15 energy is going to assure that we get all those Max Elixirs throughout the game, that we can always attach for turn, and that we can always discard them with Darkrai to get that restoration ability activated. So 15 energy might seem like a lot, but honestly, a lot of the decks that are playing like Max Elixir, they have kind of shifted toward that post-rotation. Volcanion, which we'll have a post-rotation up of later this week, hopefully, the one I'm testing right now is actually playing 14 energy, and I've seen it as high as 15 energy with things like Kiawe. So just really, really strong going forward. And the same can be said about things like the Lapras GX Water Box and some other decks. Anything that's playing Max Elixir needs energy on the board. You're playing really, really thick counts of energy now. But that should pretty much wrap up the list, guys. It's really fast, really consistent. There's not really much strategy to it. You're just kind of putting energy on the board, hopefully setting up those knockouts, and then just cleaning up with the Darkrai EX with Dark Pulse. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into a game I played on PTCGO earlier and see the deck in action. Okay guys, so we will go ahead and get started with this game on PTCGO. So looks like I have a pretty decent start here. I can put down Alter the Moon, I can Ultra Ball the Darkrai GX and Energy, so I can activate that restoration ability right away. And it looks like I've got plenty of supporters to work with, so pretty decent start, I would say. I'm going to go ahead and get a second Darkrai out, so maybe I can pull off a couple of Max Elixirs. And that's really the main strategy of this deck. It's just trying to be really aggressive, trying to get energy on the board, and hopefully discarding those Darkrai GXs, since we're playing 3 of those, to activate that restoration ability. So as you can see here, my start isn't terrible. I can go ahead and use that ability, and I'm putting that energy on Darkrai, the active Darkrai, I should say, just so that next turn, maybe it sets me up for some sort of knockout, so that way I don't have to retreat out this Darkrai. I can just attach to it, and at the very least put some pressure on my opponent. So even if they replace that Altar of the Moon with something else, say Team Magma's Secret Base or something, I should be able to still attack. And it'll be interesting to see if they are playing Team Magma's Secret Base, because if they are, that means it is going to be a pre-rotation deck, since that set is going to be rotating out in the next few weeks or so. So they might be playing things like Versus Seeker, really hard to say, but some other pre-breakthrough cards. So we see the energy and the choice band, so he can actually do a righteous edge for 50, and then next turn he could kind of follow up with a berserk for a knockout possibly. But I guess he just figured that, you know what, I might as well get set up here. It might be a long game. Darkrai is really aggressive, so I need to just go ahead and try to get set up and get more Zoroark or something out. So he used Big Well GX, and that was probably the better move to begin with, because with a choice band, regardless, berserk can still get that 180 number to knock out any of my Pokemon on the field. So he's going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and Sycamore my hand away, and I see a Max Elixir, so maybe I can get that Max Elixir. I think I actually whiffed the first Max Elixir, which is kind of bad because I need to get as many energy on the board as possible. I could Ultra Ball and maybe increase my chances in the Max Elixir, but I'm going to go ahead and Max Elixir and put that on the Darkrai EX. So as you can see, had I gotten the very first Max Elixir before I Sycamored, I would have had enough energy to one-shot this Jompa GX on the second turn of the game. So you can see how aggressive this is. I've already got 5 energy on the board by the second turn and a Choice Band, so just doing a lot of damage. So, and that's pretty much what we want. We want to be taking these nice clean knockouts. They try to hit us, but maybe they don't knock us out, and then we would just retreat out to the next Darkrai and do the same thing. So you know, unless they can just consistently use Guzmas and get their Pokemon powered up, they're going to have a hard time against a deck that's really aggressive like this one. And at this point, you see a couple of Zoroa. He evolved one into Zoroark. He's going to end me, so it doesn't really affect me all that much. I can still take a knockout next turn, but maybe he's trying to attack with the Zoroark instead, maybe getting a Mind Jack to set up for a 2-hit knockout or something. So we're just kind of waiting to see what he does exactly. He hasn't really gone through a lot of resources yet, and I don't think I have either. That's another thing about the deck. It really doesn't need much to get going. I mean, you put a Darkrai on the bench, you attach an energy, you Max Elixir, and you're already doing a decent chunk of damage. You add in Choice Band, and you're already 2-shotting your opponent. So, yeah, I mean, the strategy is pretty straightforward. Nothing crazy. We don't have any stage 2s or evolutions or anything, and that's what I really like about the deck. It's kind of a it's kind of paying homage to that big basics format from just 2 or 3 years ago. So this Darkrai just knocked out the Drampa, and because of that, now we are going to be ahead a couple prizes. So he was forced to Righteous Edge. He didn't want to go in with the Zoroark using that stand-in ability. I don't think he had the DCE, so he had to use Righteous Edge, and it just wasn't enough. He only did 20 damage, but I have to be careful here because Zoroark is actually really deadly here. His attacks don't really knock me out, but if he does use Mind Jack, it's going to put me in range of a knockout the following turn. And if I bench a Pokemon down, I believe with a Choice Band, he can actually start one-shotting my Pokemon here, or maybe with a Kukui or something. But you do have to be careful regardless because Zoroark is really strong. Mind Jack is really just kind of taking advantage of your board state. So the better you're doing, the more damage Zoroark is basically doing. So. But as you can see, I'm just counting the energy on the board, making sure I'm hitting 180, which I think I am. I'm kind of afraid to put down Pokemon because I don't want him to knock anything out. But I do have an Altar of the Moon, so I think what I might do is actually just retreat out and force him to have a Guzma or be stuck kind of 2-shotting my Pokemon again. So I'm going to go ahead and Tapu Lele. Probably should have just used Altar of the Moon to retreat out. A bit of a misplay on my part, probably, but maybe that $20 damage, I should say, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to Guzma out the Drampa that he's trying to set up, and I've got more than enough energy. I'm doing 190, so I will be taking a knockout there. So I go down to 2 prizes. I've taken 4 prizes in 2 turns, I think, so it's being pretty good. The deck's treating me pretty well. And he's going to play an N, so I am going to go down to 2 cards. Hopefully I'll get a supporter, but looks like I don't. So basically these are 2 cards I just can't really use right now. Experience share's okay, but you know, I need a supporter. I need a Tapu Lele, anything that can get me drawing cards again. So I think he is just going to use Foul Play. I guess he's going to copy... Yeah, he's going to copy the second attack. So he did 80 and then a Choice Band, so 110. So not the worst thing in the world, but I need to really focus on trying to get rid of either the Drampa or the Tapu Lele. I don't want to have to play, you know, a 7-prize game. But it looks like in this situation, I'm probably going to have to. I'm probably going to have to sacrifice this Darkrai too, because if I retreat out, I actually have to discard a couple energies, and I think I'm going to be out of range of a knockout against Zoroark. So I may have to give up a prize or 2. So I'm going to put it on experience share just in case he can't draw into it. He's only got 2 cards in his hand, so if he can't draw into the experience share, if he knocks out Darkrai, I get to conserve 2 energy on the board, and I think that should be enough to knock out pretty much whatever he brings up. So we'll have to see how that goes, but that's kind of my mindset right now. So he's going to Rescue Stretcher. He's going to get another Breakout. and he gets a Zoroark. And okay, he's going to play down a Tapu Lele, so he could end me to 1. He could get a Sycamore. Not really sure what he's going to do exactly. So he gets a Professor Sycamore. Okay, so he probably figures, my opponent has 2 cards. He's not going to have anything. He didn't play a supporter last turn, so I might as well just kind of burn through my deck to get caught up here. And I'm guessing he whiffed the Field Blower because he didn't knock off those experience shares. So I get to put those on the board. And I've got 8 energy. So I'm doing 160 plus the 20 base damage is 180. And a Choice Band's doing 210. So I think we have already won this game, guys, because Darkrai doesn't really need much to get powered up. He's got plenty of energy on the board. And there we go. So I'll use Dark Pulse for a whopping 210 damage for the win. And that is the game. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it gave you some insight on the deck, how the deck usually plays and gets set up, the kind of strategy you want to have going into the game with the deck. And if there's any other Burning Shadows decks you want me to play and build, just let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you like the video, and let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see. We are going to be branching out pretty soon. I'm excited to announce that we are going to have a brand new deck segment starting next week. Kind of keeping it under wraps right now because I'm in the process of making it work, but I think you guys will like it. It's kind of branching away from some of the more standard decks and stuff, but you will see that next week, and I am pretty excited about it. But yeah, that should wrap up the video, guys. Give us a big subscribe and a like if you can. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers, and I think in the next couple weeks, hopefully before graduate school starts back, I can pull it off. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the content. But in the meantime, this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one.